Guys, gonna be on the lonesome today, but we'll make it through. Happy Veterans Day. This will be the Veterans Day episode of Dialing Up Details. Let's get it started. What's up, dudes? Happy Veterans Day to all of you veterans out there. Today, we're gonna do a special episode based on veterans and why they go into first response type careers. I really wish I had some of my guests here with me. Ducky is a veteran. Emily had some things to do, so we're going to be on the lonesome today, but we'll make it through. We'll make it fun. We'll see what we can do about everything. So, again, a large majority of veterans, when they transition out of the service, they do get into first responder type careers. And so, we're going to talk about that today and kind of discuss why we think that is and some of the top reasons why they do. And why, for the most part, it is a really good fit. Sometimes it's not. A lot of times it is, though. So, again, if you're a veteran, thank you. If you're a veteran, also think about some first responder careers because we need you out here. We struggling a bit, right? Um, Especially if you've had one of those careers in the military where, like military police, corpsmen, combat medics, things like that. It really does help out being able to transition into a career. So, I think one of the biggest reasons why a lot of them may do that is because of their job in the military. Like I said, if that was an MP, they're going to be more suited to police work. They're going to be kind of used to it, and it'll be easy to transition into that. If they are a combat medic, a lot of times, or especially corpsmen, a lot of times the military will get them their basic certifications for those things, and so it's easier to transition to working on an ambulance or in the medical field when you get out of that. Because you already got the national certification, so why not transition into it? One of the issues I had with some of the medics coming into the medical side of things purely is the fact that um, EMTs and paramedics just, at least around here, and for the most part in this country, they just don't get paid enough. It's not really enough to support a family or anything like that. So I would say probably less of an amount going into those just because of the pay differential there. I think maybe some of the other things, they're used to a certain type of structure. Like the chain of command is real easy to get into once you transition into a first responder career. Most first responder careers have a similar chain of command to military, and that structure kind of just makes sense to military personnel. Not only that, some of the SOPs are kind of directly related to kind of how different briefings or ROEs are written in the military. So a lot of the wording and things will make sense to you, and it just kind of all it really is closely related without being too closely related, if that makes any sort of sense. Um, no, we don't want to have like a true militaristic police force, but having that experience does make sense, and being able to stay calm under pressure situations really does help. Um, a lot of your first responder careers are also like the people you work with, you're going to be working with 90% of the time. You're going to be working with them more than you're at home. So I think some of it may be just kind of the camaraderie or the basic brotherly aspect to it that you don't get with other careers. So I feel maybe that helps a little bit. Adrenaline, some people just adrenaline junkies too. That makes sense for those that go for like the firefighter career, the police careers. Um, just adrenaline and the high stakes environment kind of make them feel at home, especially if you're immediately transitioning, which is not always a good idea. You know, you want to, as much as you can. I wish like your first responder agencies would do a better job of helping people transition more into like a civilian landscape type thing. Because, like I said, just the military mindset also does not. Those of you that get out will know that like sometimes you're talking to civilian people, and I'm trying to think of the best words to put it, but it kind of turns them off, turns them away, because military people tend to speak a little more plainly or a little more brash and say things that regular people are not prepared for. They have a different kind of sense of humor, which is, same could be said for first responders in general. So that could be helping out with it. The collective identity of things as well, which I said, like the camaraderie, it it really do be different in first responder fields than any other career. Um, and it's mainly because all of the first responder careers are dangerous in their own right, like ambulance, fire, police, all of that. Police, you have the risk of being attacked. I mean, all three of them, you have a risk of being attacked, but people generally go after police officers more. And knowing that the person next to you can handle themselves in a fight and help you out if that situation ever arises really does help. And when you have multiple military personnel, you kind of know that they had to have some sort of background where they can handle themselves if they absolutely need to. One thing our department does that I think every department across the nation should have to some degree is our department actually has been getting a lot of our officers into um like jujitsu martial arts type classes to kind of help them in situations if they need to go hands on with someone, to do it in a safe way for both the person they're having to engage with and themselves. Think of it like hockey stretches, like those of you that are also hockey fans like myself. Hockey stretches are more meant to prevent injury and help with like flexibility and things. The martial arts thing for, say, officers is a way to learn those skills and do it effectively to where you're not going to hurt yourself or the other person. Because if you take yourself out of the fight by pulling a muscle trying to just throw haymakers, then yeah, I mean, it's you're not going to be any help to anyone, right? So just some things to think about. I think that's the why. I think that's why there is a draw to first responders right out of military, right? Now, now we're going to move on to the how, right? The how would be more, I think more first responder services, like I said, need to do a better job of transitioning for um your your military personnel, um help them transition into like a more of a civilian life. Not everything, especially those that are like combat veterans and have been in the absolute thick of it. I know I've seen a few people that have a hard time, like they, for some reason, they'll go to do a traffic stop and it triggers something to where all of a sudden they're looking out for IDs and VBIDs, and it just triggers something and they get worked up and they get to a point to where they can't really do what they need to effectively. And it's dangerous for them. Like you want to make sure they're taken care of. And for some reason, some first responder stuff does trigger that. No, the U.S. is not in an active war zone as much as it seems like it some days. It's not an active war zone, so you got to protect your people and help them transition and make sure they're solid to do what they need to do. And if someone, I think also a lot of departments are not good at this, but if you have a one of your guys come up to you and confide in you that they're not doing okay or something triggered this or something triggered that, uh, I think departments need to do a better job of actually educating and helping them uh transition, give them a few days off, let them decompress the way they need to, and find ways to get them help. Like mental health in general in the United States is just not good at all, right? Um, and it's worse in some states than others. But mental health in general is not hit on at all, and it really needs to be in all aspects, whether it's the extreme violent schizophrenic or whether it's PTSD or mild depression. It really needs to be hit on a lot more than it is. I think that would solve quite a few issues. It's not going to solve everything, but I think it would really help. Now, with military members coming in, sometimes departments will also give them credit for like years served in the military. In other words, they may start off with a little bit more seniority, or they may start off at a better pay rate, or have some extra things that they can use versus other people just coming in off the street and having to go through academy and everything. They may give them some type of credit to encourage military workers because, I mean, honestly, military workers are some of the best as far as this is going to sound terrible. This is going to sound like authoritarian and everything, but they're good at like taking orders and knowing what they have to do with clear communication. That's the key to a lot of things too. Is with clear communication, they'll understand, they'll lock in, they'll do what they need to do. With different MOSs are I think better suited to different things. Like we had said earlier, the corpsmen and the combat medics are probably more suited to an ambulance service job, even though they don't pay very well. They're probably more suited to that job, but it's not to say that someone who's a corpsman or combat medic wouldn't be great at a police department and would also fit in. Let's imagine the worst case scenario on a police officer's day. Your corpsman or combat medic would be absolutely invaluable to helping out the situation in the scene before the ambulance even gets there. Um, Corpsmen and combat medics also are, I mean, they're still generally trained in like tactics and combat, so they can still take care of themselves while also taking care of others. Um, Military police, of course, self-explanatory. They'll be easier for the police. Most services also have firefighter careers, and firefighters that are trained in different things. So I know a lot of like Air Force firefighters tend to go and be firefighters at airports and things like that because they're more suited to that type of fire. They've already been trained in it. They know the different firefighting techniques to those different fires because every fire takes a different tactic and different way to go about it. You're not going to fight a house fire the same way you fight a wildfire, the same way you fight a airplane fire, same way for propane or oil or gas. It's all going to be different ways that you need to deal with it, right? So they're already trained in some of those things, as well as generally every military member, in one sense or another, is going to be trained in, at least most that I know, are going to be trained in some type of CBRN tactics. So those of you that are veterans or know that it's chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives. So it's a big word for a small acronym, and not that we deal with it every day, but it's nice to understand it. That's mainly centered on, like, domestic or terroristic attacks to where you may be dealing with noxious gases, nuclear elements, things like that, but in in the motherland, in the homeland, it could be particularly useful in towns that have a lot of, train traffic, such as ours. We actually have quite a bit of train traffic, and if you there's this thing called an emergency response guidebook that tells you kind of if you know the number to that specific chemical, it'll tell you what that chemical is, what it does, the emergency ways that you should stay away from it, basically. And if you were to just read off all the different chemicals that travel by rail every single day, it's absolutely insane. You would not want to be anywhere near a train at any given point in time. So that could really help in agencies like that that deal with a lot of like chemical plants or rail traffic, things like that. Because it does get a little intense. I know after I did my CBurn class. I did one in the state guard and I did one while I was working on the ambulance. And I did not want to be around any type of fertilizer plants whatsoever. It just it's a different way. If seriously, guys, if you ever have a chance to look up, they've added some regulations and things that kind of prevent some accidents in some fertilizer plants. But people, I've heard people make jokes sometimes before about like fertilizer explosives. Look up what goes into a fertilizer plant and thank me later. So things like that, even the smallest classes and things can help them in those situations. Um, I think personally, a lot of times that a way military people can be a help, particularly in like the police force and negotiations, especially, is the having the same culture as a different person, right? So if you're having to go into a negotiation, you have someone that's had a breakdown in their PTSD, or even someone that's just had some other event that's triggered like self exit ideations or um, some harming spree ideations. If you have to enter negotiations with them and they've been in the military or they are a veteran, it sometimes does help the process. I think when you have another veteran that's able to reach out to them, especially one that was in the same branch, because we all know the branches be different. Um, so I think that can help a lot of times. So like the same culture as people, may help. The Another struggle, I think, we've already talked about, like, the PTSD, how that can kinda rear its head in normal everyday duties of, like, police officers and first responders. So that's something you do gotta watch out for, and I hope agencies take note of that and really try and help them rather than, doing the basics. And then, like, even, like, basic demilitarizing. So police are going to have different phonetics than military phonetics. It's not going to be that hard of a transition there, but even small things like that, you want to make sure that you get ahead of. Also, the way they talk, I've mentioned before how, like, maybe when you're dealing with the public, you have to be a little softer, a little soft-footed around them. You can't just straight up tell them things to do like you would possibly in the military, but well, it's kinda like a forced continuum, as we've talked about before with Ducky, and the fact that you, ask, make, tell. So you generally, with, like, policing stuff, you wanna ask someone to do something. If they don't do it, um, tell them to do it. And if they don't do it at that point, then you make them do it. So there's a continuum of that where you have to go about it that way instead of immediately jump to the tell part. Uh, Also, sometimes military people tend to be a little more dry. You have to be and sometimes to de-escalate situations with like general people, you might want to make some jokes or get around or laugh with people. Um, Sometimes your hardcore military people are not gonna do that. They just they when they have a uniform on, it's like, well, you gotta maintain military bearing out. No, dude, you're a police officer. You gotta have some give and take here a little bit. But I mean, that's something you can always work on with people. Um, like I said, a lot of agencies, I mean, going forward, a lot of agencies do give credit or like accelerated support to veteran applicants, but you got to kind of be careful with that. And you got to make sure like their MOS lined up with kind of what you're wanting them to do. The credit years though, I think that's not a bad idea at all. I do think that we should bring in a lot more veterans into the career and have a better understanding. But as we move forward, right now, let me get to some graphics here. I think this is the one I want. Yeah. So right now, about let me get to that graph so I can see it a little bit bigger on my end. Uh, Lordy, let me pull it up. It's too small to see on the OBS, so I've got to pull it up full size here. So for police officers, only about 25% of police officers are prior military members, but I mean that's the most out of any of the services there. For firefighters, you get about 19% are previous service members, and only about 10% on the EMT and paramedic side, which is still pretty good percentage. I kind of figured it would be less, just because, like I said, it's definitely a thing to where I mean I worked with a few veterans and worked on the ambulance, but I don't see how people work on ambulances and afford houses and cars and families and all of that. It's the pay is definitely not where it should be for that, and I will die on that hill forever. I mean, I really think that people in ambulances need to get paid quite a bit more to be up to the level of like firefighters and police officers for absolute sure, right? Now that a lot of fire departments run their own EMS stuff, I mean, for the most part, it is on the same level when you're talking about fire departments that hire in medics and stuff because they're on the fire department pay scale. But for those independent services, yeah, no, it's nowhere near where it should be, and that's, I mean, that's the reason I got out of it. If I'm being 110% honest, I loved the work, but you, unless, I mean, I've already let my certification go, but unless you really brought them up to the same level, there's no way I would do it again. Um, Firefighters, yeah, yeah, I've met quite a few veteran. That kind of makes sense. So as far as like the general U.S. population, though, so that last part on the graph there, that's the percentage of veterans in the U.S. population overall. So only about 7% of the U.S. population is veterans, prior military members. So when you take that into context of the percentage of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics that are veterans, then uh, you could say a vast majority of veterans do end up as first responders. I do have another graphic. I probably should have brought the other graphic out sooner. But this one is just kind of the five top reasons why veterans would become first responders. So we've already talked about all of them. We've already been all over them. Call to duty and service, kind of like the fulfillment of like helping people and things, which makes a crap ton of sense. The crisis leadership and decisive action. So that's more of like the being used to stressful situations, being able to work out in that a little bit better. The structured teamwork. So like the brotherhood and stuff. Just being able to fall in line with that a lot better. Discipline, protocol, and accountability. Wow, that is not spelled correctly. Oh well. Uh, so that's more of like being no stranger to structure, especially if you worked in one of those careers that required structure in it. And then that last one was seamless technical skill transfer. So, like I said, some of those MOSs that work well for that whatever first responder career they're going into. Guys, I must be a fast talker. We're only at like 23, 25 minutes here. I really, this is why I need more people because it helps out. Um, I will say, as far as like veterans and first responders, a lot of people tend to think that cops are, and particularly in the US, are militarized. I got into this conversation with Ducky the other day at work, and the fact that a lot of people think that the police force is militarized because of some of the just not being knowledgeable in some of the weapons that they use, the equipment that they use, such as MRAPs, Humvees, any manner of like bulletproof thing that they have, and that's just that in and of itself doesn't really make them militarized, right? Um, I think people use that word in like a different connotation than what it should be because you think about what rifles and stuff officers carry, it's no different than the regular person get. They're not. I will say some SWAT teams do have automatic rifles and stuff, and that to me may be a little touch far, but here we are, kind of thing. So generally, like your officers aren't going to be carrying any different rifles. They're not going to be full autos. They're not going to be anything crazy. They're matching force with force kind of thing. And also, a lot of people have mentioned before that particularly online. When I say a lot of people, a lot of times I mean like online comment sections and everything else. People get upset that like, well, officers chose that career. They should be prepared to be offed and whatnot. I mean, and there is a difference. Ducky had mentioned that there is a difference between being accepting and prepared for that possibility, and then but also taking every precaution necessary to make sure that doesn't happen, right? Because if you have the opportunity to get an MRAP or a bullet shield or a rook or whatever the case is, if you have the opportunity to get something that's going to protect you from that, why would you not do it? um I mean, hey, you're saving the taxpayers insurance payouts whenever you get hurt or off. And it that's the thing. There's a difference in like being mentally prepared for it and accepting of it, and also taking every precaution necessary to make sure that does not happen, like wearing your vests, um, staying in armored vehicles, things of that nature. So yes, they are prepared mentally for it, but at the same time, why would they not take every precaution to make sure that doesn't happen? Kind of like some people saying that they don't have to fight or they don't have to use their sidearms on someone. I mean, it, they're going to take every precaution necessary to make sure that they are not hurt and taken out of the force and having to pay overtime and having to go through rehab and insurance payments and blah 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 blah. They're going to take every precaution necessary to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I don't, nobody should be able to blame them for that whatsoever. They're going to take every precaution. Let's see here. Oh, here's okay. I'm kind of reading through some of my notes, and here's a correlation I did not think about. So like your aviations and logistics type careers in the military, as far as like comm operators and everything like that as well, probably good fits for like emergency management and dispatch. So like allocating resources, bigger municipalities or counties that have actual emergency management departments that like coordinate resources, deploy resources to areas that need it and everything. They would probably be a really good fit for that. Veterans just they have a high level practical experience with things like that, and that's what makes them so easy to learn the skills. Well, learn the skills that they don't already know, or learn the SOPs in our sense that apply to their skills. And most of the time, they've also applied those skills under stress, like combat or things. So that really does make him a good fit. Tell me, guys, have you had any plans for Veterans Day? Any questions, anything like that? Please slap them in. Like I said, we're still just at 30 minutes. I'm gonna try and pull up some review videos here, and we will do a few more YouTube review videos. Just kind of fill up our time slot here. Let's take off our sound real quick. I did have a few saved. I can probably go to those pod reviews. Yep. Sorry. Awkward silence. I know. You'll be okay. You've heard me yap for the past 30 minutes straight. Um. So okay, we're gonna view a pretty chaotic scene here. It is very graphic, so viewer discretion is advised. This is kind of a very good example as to why sometimes an officer's PTSD might activate, right? Or why those that were, in what? Let's go to this one so you can see my beautiful face a little bit better, right? But why they're good in those situations, but also why they, things like this may activate something, because this is very much a situation where it comes out of nowhere.
The officer's
See, that was a firefighter there. That collapsed. I don't believe the firefighter was hit on that, but
Somebody call 911!
Where's the guy shooting? Hey, let's go. Move on.
see lots of shots fired, having to get into cover, things like that.
On May 30th, 2024, in the Whittier neighborhood of Minneapolis, Officer Jamal Mitchell responded to reports of 2 people shot inside an apartment. As he tried to give medical assistance, the scene took a tragic turn.
Squad 512. Look, we have at least 2
Buffering.
victims outside at the location,
Okay.
bleeding.
So this is where, as he shows up, he does see that there are 2 victims on site bleeding, and then he's going to get out and try and take care of it.
Hey,
So, okay, as we go here, you're going to see this blurred out part up here. That's going to be one of them, one of the victims, and this guy here. So this guy here, just to kind of spoil it a little bit, this guy here, he believes at this moment is a victim. He's the first one he sees. He's the first one he's going to approach. His intention here is to approach him, see where he's been hit at, and apply a tourniquet and first aid to this person. That is his intention with this person.
who shot you? Who shot you?
Notice something here. He's putting on gloves. What's where this dude's arm is? What? Why is he? I mean, is he trying to hold pressure on his wounds? Or is he hiding something? Who knows? I mean, by the way I'm talking, y'all can probably guess that this is how it goes.
Are there victims inside?
For those of you that don't know what just happened, that injured party there was the person that started all of this, and he waited for the officer to look up from him, pointed the firearm right at the officer's head. Pow. Yep, right here. And
Are
gun.
there victims inside?
An officer is down. Just like that. Officer trying to help him.
The officer's dead! Somebody call 911!
Our coverage is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan. A crash.
Standard Morgan and Morgan.
Insurance knows what
This is
worth 30 or
Midwest.
40 times.
Midwest Crime is the channel for this one.
There's no cost. You can go to forthepeople.com/MidwestCrime or scan our QR code on screen.
Skip forward just a little bit here.
But the suspect refused to stop. He kept firing, turning the entire scene into chaos.
So the suspect keeps firing. You can see these firefighters walking up here. So they're going up, going to try and help the officer and help the dude. I can tell you right there, from the way that, now I could be 110% wrong here, just to be fair. But the way that firefighter reacted there, I'm going to say he heard it whiz by his ear, because, well, it depends. But I don't think he'd be reacting that way. He's not
Soon
moving very
after,
quick.
officers Luke and Eric arrived on the scene, scanning the chaos as they tried to pinpoint the shooter's location.
And see, you could see him still laying there. Most of them don't know that that is the shooter at this point. Now, these civilians are trying to help them pinpoint where it is, and granted, they're not doing a great job, but at that point, you should probably just get them away. But none of them know where this fire is coming from at the moment. So at this point here, they have civilians and stuff mixed in with them,
let's go.
which is not good. You see the guys still laying by the car in that shot. So now here they're pushing up. You can tell these two officers here, even though they're having to deal with like the chaotic civilians and everything, I would say probably both of these officers are veterans because of the way they're tactically pushing up, staying in like a general formation here, and getting to different cover. Generally, your vehicles are not going to be a hard cover situation, but sometimes they're the best that you have. Yeah, see in there, like rotating around different cover, staying with each other. That's like a hard cover right there. Again, I'm sorry. No YouTube Premium, I'm sorry. Yeah, here he is
He's
here.
loading up right now for evidence. They shot him in the head. He's dead. He's dead. I don't know where it's coming from, but he's dead.
So none of those officers going to stop on the threat, but that
Let's move. Come on. Come on.
that's one of those reasons, good and bad reasons, why officers sometimes, when they are a veteran, it can really help. Something else I wanted to talk about in this video, I'm going to skip forward a little bit on this one because this dude right here, this witness.
You know what? I didn't see anything.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to go back a little bit. And I'll give you some context to it. So,
Did this
On that property?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My
context behind the video here. The juvenile earlier that was in the gray sweater shirt, he was attacked by an intoxicated lady. She did end up going to jail, blah, blah, blah. They're getting together with some witnesses and asking them for their IDs, their names and dates of birth to put down, and they're asking them to write a statement. The reason officers do this is because a lot of times the judges or the courts are going to be requesting this information. And if you don't have that information, sometimes that account will be thrown out. The officers do not, technically, they can't force it out of you. They don't have to do it, but it makes a case so much stronger when they can get that from somebody. And so if you're a witness to something and you refuse to give your ID or identifying information, anything like that, a lot of times, if there's no other witnesses, the judge is going to throw it out. The court system, the judicial system, is the one that will get that case thrown out. So if you're ever in a situation where you are a witness and an officer asks you for an ID or to identify yourself, it's not to try and get you in trouble. A lot of times, I know I can speak to our agency, a lot of times our officers will not, unless it's like a warrant for murder or something, right? They're not going to mess with like some tiny warrants on if you're a witness to a major case. They are trying to get the person put up, right? They are not going to wrap you up in some small warrant stuff. Just, when they're trying to get statements from you, they're just not going to do it. But when people refuse, that's when cases get thrown out, and it's where they get blamed online. The officers are going to get blamed for not doing anything. But at the same time, if you are in a career and you know that case is going to get thrown out, and you know that if you arrest someone that it's just going to get overturned, and then the rest of your arrests look bad because of it, or you may get reprimanded or whatever the case is, you want to make sure that you have every piece of information available. And so that's where, when you have witnesses and people like that, you definitely want to get them to do statements and get their ID, their name and date of birth, things like that. So that way the courts can contact them, get them to swear to their statement, things of that nature. So that way it's not thrown out or just.
you contact
Do you have your ID with you? Do you have your ID?
So I did see the.
Do you have your ID first?
I do have my ID.
Okay, can I get that from you since you were a witness?
And that's when people like this.
You know what? Never mind.
What's the problem?
Yep. See, he's like, never
What's
mind.
the problem?
The problem is I'm trying to be helpful because I saw a grown woman attack this young man.
Correct. So I need your ID then.
For what?
Because you're a witness to it. You're going to be listed in the report as a witness.
Okay.
And my sergeant just asked me to get your information, so that's what I'm doing.
I'm giving you my information. I'm
No,
gonna
your
give you
name, your
my
birthday,
name.
and all of that.
Jesus.
So I'll follow you and get that from you while you're telling me your story.
I am not. You know what? I didn't see anything.
Okay, have a good day. That guy.
Witness that saw it all.
He doesn't want to identify himself, so he says he didn't see anything.
Hey, Bubba.
The best I can gather is
So,
this.
luckily, in this incident, they did have other witnesses and other people that were able to actually fill out a statement and completed a statement for the officers and handled it in a much better way than that. But you know, that's what officers deal with day in and day out. I do hope that you enjoyed my voice here for 45 minutes. I do apologize that I don't have guests. Everybody ended up being busy. It's going to be a little bit shorter of an episode, but I do appreciate all of you veterans out there. Thank you for your service, and thank you for doing what you do every day, whether or not you're still in some type of first responder type service, or whether whatever you're doing. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here and supporting. And I hope you guys have a great. Oh, and happy late birthday, Marine Corps, because you know we got to mention that, right? That has to be mentioned. Yeah, all the Marines would be mad at me if I didn't. I'll send you some crayons in the mail. Okay, how about that? But I appreciate you guys being here. If you have any suggestions on what to do on future streams or what you want to see, just reach out. Let me know. Put a comment down in some of the episodes that'll be posted with my long form content. I'm going to try and also get back to some more short videos. We do have a plan to do that. It's just this week kind of fell apart as far as planning, but hopefully you still enjoyed it. And if you are a veteran and you're not in first responder services, consider it. Consider reaching out to your local departments and things. See if they'll sponsor you. Go through Academy and get something done there, right? But again, I'm going to quit rambling. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you on the next one, and hopefully I'll have my normal guests, Emily and or Ducky, back with us. Until next time, don't forget, if you have to call 911 for any reason, dial up those details.